This, yes. Okay.
Amazing.
We got it. Let's let everyone in. Admit, admit. Welcome, everyone. Just getting everyone in bit by bit here. Let's see. It's quite a few. Good. Great turnout again. Welcome, welcome. Marilyn, Carrie, Deb, Catherine, Louise, Sophie, Deborah, Debbie. Bit by bit. Hello, ladies. Welcome. Rowan's here, and he is ready to share his amazing knowledge. I think that is all of you. I'm just going to make sure you're all on mute. If you can also just check to make sure that you're on mute yourself, that would be great. Mute all. If I do that, does it mute you, Rowan? I think it might. There you go. I got you back. Okay. Fabulous. That's it. Everyone's in. Thanks for coming, ladies. It's me again, Stevie, as you know, from Camino Women, and I'm here with the amazing Rowan from Summit Strength, who is obviously the owner, the CEO, the head coach, and just a general amazing hiker that can teach us all kinds of good stuff. So tonight's actual title for this and the topic is energy management for hiking. So I'm going to hand it over to Rowan, and he's going to take it away as usual.
Well, thank you very much, and hello to everyone. I hope you've all had a lovely start to the week, and yeah, really excited to be back on board, to be chatting through another topic for you. So, as Stevie said, we're going to be talking about energy management for hiking, which is a really cool subject because obviously we know on the trail, not going there to enjoy ourselves. Last thing we really want to do is just be absolutely knackered and not having a really good time. And today we're going to be sharing some really practical, pretty simple informations you can use, and a lot of it you can apply very quickly. It doesn't take a huge amount of effort, compared to some of the other stuff we've been talking about, where it's kind of a longer term thing. The energy management stuff, at least three-quarters of it, it's pretty quick going. So, plan of attack for today is I have got a duck off at 6:45 on the dot. So I'm going to try and get through my material as quickly as I can, because there's a lot I'm going to cover. And then also, if anyone does have any questions, I'll just fire off some Q&A at the end. So as we're going through, if anyone has any questions, just pop it in the chat box and I'll just kind of work through them in order, as we get to the end. So with that being said, let me share my screen. Let me get my presentation going and we can get into it. So, a little bit of a recap. If you haven't been to one of the presentations before or haven't come across me, who I am, my name is Rowan Smith. I'm the founder of Summit Strength, which is an online personal training service which specializes in working with hikers. Now, essentially, we help hikers who fall into a few different categories. Number one, people who have a big trip planned, whether it's a big day hike, a big overnighter, big multi-dayer, or some people doing crazy big mountains or whatever it may be. We help them get in a good spot for that. We help a lot of hikers who do struggle with an ache or pain. Like I'm sure a lot of people on here realize, look, when I go out for my hikes, sometimes I get knee pain or foot pain or back pain, whatever it may be. And that's a big part of what we help people with to get them a bit more comfortable on their adventures. And we also help lots of regular hikers who may not have a big trip coming up, may not have an ankle pain, but they just feel like they have a bit of their physical condition, their fitness is kind of holding them back from really enjoying themselves. And they kind of want a bit of help just to get out there, take it all in and just have a good time. So I've personally trained and prepared, over 400 hikers in every type of situation, trip imaginable. It's not just me these days. Through Summit Strength, we have a few other coaches working with us. So we've got a nice, awesome team of people, helping hikers take over the world, basically. So, with that being said, we're talking about energy management for hiking. And as I said before, energy management is absolutely essential for hikers. Really, when it comes down to it, it's pretty simple. If you don't have enough energy on the trail, you're going to struggle. Your legs are going to burn out. You're going to get huffed and puffed. You're just going to be like, getting through the day, just not having a good time. Well, there we go. You're not going to have a good time. So a lot of people can get through the whole day, but they'll just be like, just walking along, just counting down the minutes, counting down the hours, whatever it may be. I've been there. I'm sure every single person on the hike on the call has been there before, and we know that's just not much fun. It sucks. Also, high risk of aches, pains, and injuries. So both in the situation of if you already have knee pain, foot pain, whatever it may be, the increased likelihood of that layering up and getting in the way of that particular trip, but also more substantial injuries where you might roll your ankle or trip over a root or have a tumble or whatever it may be. Fatigue does play a factor into all of those things pretty significantly. And then also finally, like less chance, when we're tired, we just don't really be able to appreciate our surroundings. We typically watch the trail. We don't really sort of take in the beautiful landscapes around or spot wildlife. I was talking to someone the other day and they said a deer ran across their path and literally they were 5 minutes away from them. They weren't in Australia or somewhere else. They didn't see it and because they were just staring at the trail and only someone behind them, like mentioned it, and they were a bit disappointed about that. Or even think deep thoughts. Like for me, I like to go out and hike and just kind of think about life or what I want to do. It sounds a bit corny, but we all know it as what it is as hikers. So it does obviously get in the way if we're just not feeling super energetic. So in the short term, if we're looking about like half day hikes where we just go out for 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 hours, this type of thing, it isn't a massive deal. Obviously, it is good to be energetic. You can kind of get through those things all right. But really, when we start thinking about full day hikes, if we're getting up to that 5, 6, 7 hours, we're kind of on your feet for quite a while, or overnighters or multi-dayers or whatever it may be, it just gets more and more and more important. And the more and more attention you kind of want to put into all of this. So today we're going to be diving into some simple tips to help with all of this and help with your energy, basically. So basically what we're going to be covering today, really, really simple. We're going to go over some simple training principles around how you can help with this. We're going to have some simple nutrition and hydration tips, a little bit of pacing strategies, and some recovery tips. Now, what we are not going to cover is we're not going to be diving into specific workouts and exercises. We're not going to be talking about specific meal plans or anything like that. It's a little bit beyond. I'll be talking about like hours and hours on those particular subjects in itself. So this is just kind of going into some quick tips. And I am going to apologize. I am talking really quickly, but I've got tons I wanted to fit in today, so I want to make sure I kind of get through it all. So hopefully it's all comes through clear enough. So to start with, let's talk about training and physical preparation. So what have I done? This training and physical preparation. But essentially, when we're talking about training and physical preparation, the way I kind of want to like to think about this is essentially what we're trying to do in the context of energy management is building a reserve. Now, basically, what that means is essentially what we're trying to do is in our training, ensure that we always have more capabilities in our physical sense than what's actually required of us on the trail. Because ultimately, if we're out on the hikes, and a lot of people can kind of drag themselves through and just grit the teeth and get through things. But ultimately, if we are at the limit of our capabilities, either during certain sections of the trail, if we're on a massive climb, we're just absolutely at the limit, or you're just getting to the end of the day and you're like, I've just got nothing left. This will severely, deplete our energy. It'll load us up with fatigue and it'll make it much, much more difficult for us to recover the next day. And just basically we'll wake up, we just will burn through a bunch of energy and we'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't feel amazing. And that'll get worse and worse and worse and worse. So essentially what we want to be doing is making sure you're getting to the end of the day or getting through these sections. And ideally, we're never really working at that limit. You've always got a reserve of sort of fitness behind you. So you can, have that behind you. Now, really when it comes down to this particular topic, there's kind of two different aspects we're sort of thinking about here. Aerobic fitness and strength. And we're going to be diving into examples on both of those. So on the aerobic fitness, essentially aerobic fitness is in a nutshell, your ability of your body to produce energy for long periods of time. So when we're walking, when we're swimming, when we're cycling, aerobic fitness is us just producing energy to sustain those activities. Now, in hiking, that's the single most important aspect of fitness that we're kind of looking at, and is the single most important thing we want to be developing. Now, in your training, as a bit of a rule of thumb, essentially what we want to be doing as a long-term thing when we're looking at our hikes, and say you've got a particular end date, you have a trip coming up, which everyone on this call pretty much does have. Essentially, we want to be making sure we're comfortable hitting two metrics. And I've talked about these on the other calls, and I'm not going to go into a dramatic amount of detail, but I'll briefly cover them again. Essentially, we want to hit two metrics that we make sure we're comfortable with. We want to, number one, be comfortable hiking the longest equivalent amount of hours that's required of us on our trip. So if you're going on a hike and the longest day is going to take you about 6 hours, we want to be comfortable that we can, happy that we can comfortably hike 6 hours on our feet, back to back, just walking. And it's not at that limit that we're comfortable with that. Also combine that, we also want to combine that with our heaviest pack weight we expect on the trip. So if on the hike we're going through, we're carrying a day pack and we think, oh, it's probably going to be about 7 kilos as a maximum weight. Essentially, we want to be comfortable that we can do that longest day in hours and that heaviest pack weight. And essentially what we want to be looking at there. They're the kind of two metrics we really want to look on our aerobic fitness. Now, again, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on here, but basically, rule of thumb, 2 to 3 weeks before you go away on your trip, you kind of want to be comfortable working at those two metrics and be like, hey, I can comfortably do that. So essentially the way you want to look at that is just make sure you have a nice, slow and steady build with your hiking plan. Best rule of thumb, start at the end, start that 2 to 3 weeks before you go away, schedule in a hike, which is going to hit those two metrics there. And then look at your calendar, work backwards, schedule in hikes you can do and sort of make sure there's a slow and steady build up. Now, in the other calls I've done, the previous ones, I've gone into this in much more detail. So if anyone wasn't on those calls and they're like, hey, I'm curious about that, reach out to Steve, you get one of the old recordings, and I go into it in a lot more detail. But I'm not going to talk about too much more here because we've done it previously. And on top of that, with the hiking plan, just ensure that you are working on your cardio in other relevant ways in the week. You're doing some pack walking or some stair and hill sessions or maybe some cycling or whatever it may be, and just actively working on your cardio. Again, not getting too deep, but that's general rule of thumb. Now, on the strength side of things, essentially when we're talking about energy management, one of the biggest, easiest things to kind of wrap your head around here is what we call strength reserve. And I'm going to explain this and how this applies in the context. So essentially what strength reserve is the difference between your maximal strength, so the maximal amount of force your muscles can produce, and the strength required for a given task. So for example, if we're stepping up on a step, we have to use a certain amount of our muscles' maximal strength to get up that step. Typically not our, really high at our limits, but it requires a certain percentage. And essentially strength reserve is kind of the difference between those two things. Now, essentially what we want to be doing with our strength training is increasing this reserve and making it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, making the difference between our maximal strength and required strength quite a bit big. So to put this in context, here's a bit of an example. For example, you go out on training. You're out on the trail and you come across a climb which has a series of pretty high steps, which often happen on the trail. And not just the nice ones we got day to day, but those awkwardly high ones where you really got to kind of get up. And you're carrying about maybe a 6 kilo day pack. Now, in this hypothetical example, every single step you take up requires about 20% of your maximal strength. So every single step you take up, they're super high, and it takes about 20% of all the force you could exert through your legs. Now, if you do this again and again and again, 1 or 2 or 3, 4 times might be okay. But as we know as hikers, you might do this 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 times, something like that. This will get you tired pretty quickly if you're working, relatively, there. At the end of the hike, you're like, oh my gosh, that sucked. I didn't have a good time. That was really, really tough. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to put a bit of time into strengthening my legs because I saw that was a bit tricky. So for 6 weeks, you spend a bit of time doing some structured strength training, developing muscles, getting a bit stronger, and then you go out and do that hike again. Exact same hike, 6 kilos on your back again. But this time, every time you take a step up on those stairs, instead of being 20% of your maximal strength, it's only going to take 15% of the maximal strength, which doesn't sound like too crazy, 5% or whatever it may be, but this is a dramatic difference in regards to our ability to exert force and our fatigue management. That's kind of what we're looking at. A lot of people think, okay, strength training, hiking, why would I bother? It doesn't really make sense. But that's kind of the context we're looking at, just to make, build up this strength reserve, make things a little bit more doable. Now, when it comes to energy management, ensuring you have a big strength reserve is really, really, really beneficial, and it can make a massive difference. Now, how do you do this? Really, really simple, but not, it's a bit, a lot of details. Structured strength training, super, super, super beneficial. Now, again, I'm not going to go into details in this, but if you were interested in learning about strength training, how it applies into hiking, and wrapping your head around some hiking specific strength training workouts, I do have a little free mini course, which we've offered before. Offer you guys again. It's essentially strength training for hikers mini course. It sort of teaches you a little bit more detail about strength training for hiking and teaches you how to create your own workouts to help with your hiking. Completely free. I'll let you know at the end of the presentation on how you can get your hands on that. But that can go forward into the strength reserve. So that's the training side of things. That's the type of stuff which it takes a little bit while to put into action. All the rest of the stuff in this presentation now is going to be pretty quick for you to just knock off. You can probably go do it tomorrow and it'll make a pretty big difference. So nutrition for energy management. What are we talking about here? One of the biggest issues most hikers face with their energy is they undereat on the trail and they don't provide the body with enough fuel. Essentially, when it comes down to us hiking, we can get through barely eating anything. In all honesty, we can survive no matter what we really eat. You hear all these stories of people who don't eat anything on the trail, or they eat like an apple or whatever it may be. We can survive on pretty much anything. But if we're really looking to optimize our energy and make sure we have enough energy to be in that state of enjoying ourselves, really we typically need to eat a bit more than most people do on the trail. It's just a natural thing. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hikers, and pretty much 99% of them really, in all honesty, undereat on the trail. and they don't provide the body with enough fuel to really, really sit at that optimal level. Now, essentially what we want to be doing, without getting too deep and complex and thinking about numbers and macros and all of that stuff, which just gets a little bit convoluted, simplest rule of thumb is to ensure that you're really looking after your energy. When you're out on the trail, you just want to be regularly snacking and topping up your fuel stores and making sure you're regularly just giving the body more and more and more fuel as you're ticking over. Because we're walking over long periods of time, we're burning energy. A lot of us will end up just having our meals, or breakfast, or lunch, or dinner, maybe a little bit of grazing a snack once in a while, whatever it may be. But we want to turn this more regular. So we're constantly topping up our energy. Now, how do we do this? Really, really, really simple. Again, we don't have to get into numbers. We don't have to get too complicated. Super, super simple. Essentially, number one, you want to make sure in your pack you have a large range of high carbohydrate, low fiber, low protein, low fat snacks. That's the secret sauce. High carbohydrate, low fiber, low protein, low fat. Now, some of you may be looking at that and be like, okay, that's interesting, because that's like what the opposite is in regards to healthy eating, which is pretty much typically promoted in day-to-day life. And that's very much true. This isn't what you want to be eating if you're just sitting in the office and you're just like, sitting around, or just day-to-day snacking, whatever it may be. The idea behind this type of stuff, high carbohydrate, low fiber, low protein, low fat, is essentially, number one, it's going to provide you with lots and lots of energy. Carbohydrates is kind of where we get the majority of our energy, or the quickest, most easily accessible energy when we're hiking. When we're hiking, we're going up hills, we burn through a lot of this. Carbohydrates is going to fuel, replenish that, and get that back in the body. Now, the low fiber, the low protein, the low fat, the idea behind that is this will make sure it's quick to digest, and it's not going to sit in your stomach, and not going to be uncomfortable when you're trying to exercise. It's not going to pull blood away from the working muscles and sit in your stomach and your digestive system and trying to work there. That's going to be quick to digest. So yes, when we're sitting in the office, we kind of want the opposite. We want that stuff that's going to keep us full up for longer and sort of be slowly digesting. But when we're actually moving with our hiking, when we're trying to fuel our exercise, kind of the opposite. High carbohydrate, low fiber, low protein, low fat snacks. Now, essentially what we want to be doing, a couple of tips here. Number one, we want to make sure we have a nice spread of things. So making sure we have things that we enjoy, and we have a nice spread. So we got sweet, we got savory, we just got things, for any mood or whatever it may be. We want to make sure they're easily accessible. So most packs these days, day packs will have like a little hip belt. Make sure that, you got some nice snacks in there, or at least in your pocket. Stuffing that you don't have to actually stop, take off your pack or whatever. It's just easy there. And then rule of thumb, every hour or two in between your meals, you want to have a bite or two or something. That's pretty much it. So it's not waiting till you have your rest periods. It's not waiting for your meals, but you kind of just want to be grazing. I typically tell my hikers every hour, just have like a couple of bites of whatever it may be in between your meals and keep on going. Some people struggle with that every hour. So, in that situation, every couple of hours, maybe have 3 or 4 bites. It's not like you're eating to be uncomfortably full, but it's just constantly grazing and snacking up. Really, 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 really simple. Now, when it comes down to examples of this type of thing, this is kind of there's a million and one different things. So these are some simple examples of falls into this. Number one, fruit. Most fruits fall into that, or obviously that may not be super convenient on the longer trip. So dried fruit falls into that. Things like snakes or gummy bears or chocolates, things like pretzels, white wraps or bagels, crackers. There's these cool little things like they're little like straws of honey. It's like some people prefer to be a little bit more like natural food, and it's literally just like a straw of honey and you can slurp it up. Muffins, pikelets, literally anything like that. Just thinking high carbs, low fat, low protein. And get a nice selection of that and have it handy. And then in amongst your meals and in amongst your actual snacking times, your actual rest stops, you just graze on that and constantly top up the energy. Super simple, but makes such a difference. Now, next one, that's nutrition. Really, really simple. Next one, hydration. Now, we all kind of know, we've been told this a million times, okay, a lot of us don't do it. Dehydration, when we don't have enough water in, it can lead to more fatigue. It can affect our energy, lead to tiredness, lead to a bunch of different things. Dehydration, not ideal. Essentially, most of us know, whether we drink water or not, it's a little bit tricky, particularly with hikers, and you're like, oh, do I drink enough water? Whatever it may be. Yeah, we know hydration is good, but a lot of us don't do it. Basically, when it comes down to this, I'm not going to get into the weeds too much, but simple rule of thumb in regards to how to tell if you're hydrated or not. If you're drinking enough water, if you're fully hydrated, giving your body the best chance of having all the energy it needs. Simplest way to measure it, there's lots of different ones, but it's looking at urine color. In the sense, if you look at your urine and if it's clear to straw colored, you're all good. And it means you're fully hydrated, happy days, just keep on sipping water as you go through, all good. If it is a little bit darker, then that means you probably want to drink a bit more water, want to get a little more into you and bump up that a little bit. So that's the simplest way to kind of figure things out. Obviously, this isn't super practical to do on the trail for most people. It's not like, you're going to be sussing this out in the middle of a hike or anything like that. It's not super practical. So typically what I recommend is using this as a bit of a gauge to figure out in your training hikes at home and giving you a bit of an idea around how much water you should kind of be drinking. So essentially what you want to do is like on your training hikes, you just want to keep a track of how much water you're drinking and how much you're hiking, basically. And if you go out for, say, a 3 hour hike and just keep a track, did I drink a litre or 2 litres or 3 litres or whatever it may be? And then basically after the hike or when you get home, do that little urine test and just have a look. Just be like, am I hydrated? Happy days. Am I not? Okay, maybe I need to drink a little bit more water. And then if you do some very, very rough maths, you can kind of figure out, okay, you know what? I did 3 hours. I had 2 litres. I was fully hydrated. That's a good measure. So I'll try to do that. What's 3 hours? 2 litres. I can't do those maths, but like, you figure it out like how much per hour you roughly need to drink. And then you can sort of look at, okay, I've got a bottle. I'll drink this 2 or 3 times in a day or whatever it may be. Or if you go the opposite, you're like, hey, I didn't drink enough. I need to bump it up. And you can get a bit of a rough gauge. Honestly, it's not perfect, but unless you're going to be like, getting really complicated and weighing yourself or doing sweat tests, this is the most simple thing. It's a bit of a dirty science, but you can figure it out, get a bit of a rough gauge, and just get that measure of like, hey, am I drinking enough? Happy days, or do I need to drink a bit more? And you can apply that into your hikes. Um, and then on top of that, is just give yourself a bit of a reminder system. Like half the reason most people don't drink enough is that they just don't remember. So typically I recommend for my hikers when they're going out on the trail, if they struggle with water, they need to get a little bit more in. Number one, make it easy for themselves. So have a hydration pack, have a bottle of water as well. So you can sip on the hydration pack as you go and you can have bigger slurps of water when you're in your breaks. And then also a reminder system. Like I like to write just drink water on my hand at the start of each day because I always have a pen on my hikes because I like to journal. And I write that at the start of the day. It sweats off in an hour, but because I've literally written it down, it kind of reminds me. Some people I get to write a note in their pocket. Some people I get tell them to get like a reminder system, like with a buddy, and they bounce off each other. Whatever, like whatever you think will help on that. Such a simple thing, but it goes a long way. Now, building out the hydration, next thing to talk about is electrolytes. So basically, when it comes down to it, electrolytes are kind of salts in your blood. To put it really, really, really simply, we all have electrolytes in our blood. In our blood, in our body. Naturally, we get a lot of electrolytes in our poo, but typically what happens is when we're doing longer periods of exercise, when we start to sweat, sometimes we can lose some of those electrolytes. And typically, any hike which is over 2 to 3 hours is probably worth considering how to replenish those and potentially having a bit of an electrolyte supplement. Now, this can go a long way for reducing fatigue, maintaining energy, and it can be really, really useful. Such a simple thing, but it makes a big difference. This gets even more important when you are in the heat. So basically what typically happens if we go on a hot hike in the summer right now, obviously, well, it's not summer now, but the hot weather right now, when we get really sweaty, we'll sweat out water and salt. We'll drink lots of water and bring back water into our body, but we won't replenish that salt. And it gets a bit out of whack in the body, which can lead to further fatigue, which isn't ideal. So essentially, having an electrolyte supplement can reduce fatigue, can aid hydration, it helps us retain water a little bit better, helps us drink a little bit more water, and it can reduce the risk of imbalance in salts, which is important. Both from a small imbalance in salts can lead to a little bit of fatigue. A big imbalance in salts can lead to, death. We've probably heard the horror stories of people in Kokoda, like once a year or every couple of years, people do die on that trip because of exactly this. They just drink too much water, not enough electrolytes, and they just get they get what's called hyponatremia. So it's something that we want to be aware of. Now, basically with the electrolytes, super, super simple tips. Number one, there's a million and one brands out there. They all do pretty much the same thing, but there's a few nuances, however you say that word, in amongst them all. I typically recommend finding a brand which has carbohydrates in it as well. Because as I said before, carbs really, really beneficial for your energy. Sometimes we typically undereat. There's a lot of electrolyte supplements which will have carbs as part of it, which is an easy way to get it. So, for example, a classic one in Australia is like the Hydrolyte. Like you might go down to the chemist, and a lot of people have done that. A lot of the hydrolyte stuff is just pure electrolytes, and I think there's like hydrolyte sport maybe, which has carbohydrates in it as well, whatever it may be. But just look on the back, look at the sugars. If it has lots of sugar, in this situation, that's a good thing, because that's an easily accessible carbohydrates. If it has zero sugar, it's not bad, but you could probably do a little bit better. So any brand which is about electrolytes has carbs will probably do the job. When you're doing this, I definitely recommend making up a bottle at the start of a day's hiking. So at the start of the day, when you're in camp or packing up your gear, get a bottle, make up your servings or whatever it may be, and get it all done there as with how much you're going to have, and then just sip it through the day. Now, the reason I say that is because sometimes, some people will say, hey, I'm going to have half a serving in the morning and then I'll make up another bottle later. And it just doesn't happen. It gets fiddly at lunch or whatever it may be. People get all whatever. So I just say get it done in the morning, make up a bottle with however much you're going to drink, and then just sip it through the day with the intention of finishing about 3/4 through the day. Yeah, super simple. And then finally, make sure you test these at home. So don't, for the first time you use these, if you are going to use them, don't do it on your trip. Make sure you test it at home, just for the fact that some people, first time they have it, it may not agree with your stomach. And the last thing you want is, on the trail and great adventure, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not feeling this. So test these at home, figure it out. Most of the time it's okay, but just in case you don't want it. So electrolytes. So coming through, I'm still banging through this. I know going very, very quickly, but we're right on time, so that is all good. Pacing strategies for hiking. So this is a really, really simple one, very, very valuable. Now, basically when it comes down to pacing, like the speed that we actually walk at, pretty much when it comes down to it, our natural speed of our walking and our hiking. So everyone on this call has a slightly different natural speed, where if we're left to our own devices, we'll just naturally fall into this speed. For these natural speeds for each of us individually, it is about 99% accurate for our most energy efficient pace. Meaning the body really, really, really hates spending energy. It hates burning energy. It's just a survival mechanism. So we all get super, 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 super beneficial, super good at conserving our energy. And essentially one of the ways the body does that is with its natural walking speed. Whatever our natural speed we walk at is probably our most energy efficient pace, meaning we could walk the longest with the least amount of fatigue. We just stuck to that speed. Now, basically, if you can stick to your natural walking speed on the trail in the perfect world, this is going to be our most energy efficient pace, meaning it's going to be the least likely to cause fatigue and be able to keep them going. Now, this also means if you are pushed to go a bit quicker and get out of your natural speed, this is going to use significantly more energy. It's not like the end of the world. We all do it. We all get into it. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall into a collapse after half an hour of this, but it will do significantly more energy over a period of time. So this isn't a big deal day to day or on shorter hikes again, but if you're on a multi-day hike or if you're doing like super long days, this definitely does add up and it's good to be aware of. So rule of thumb when it comes down to this, a few practicalities on this particular topic. Number one, if you can, and I know this isn't possible all the time, but if you can, try to stick to your own pace. Now, typically in group environments, there'll be, maybe a quick pack, a middle pack, and a bit of a slower pack, whatever it may be. Sometimes, we get a bit self-conscious. We're like, hey, we want to be with the quicker people, or we don't want to be at the back, or whatever it may be. If you have the option, and if it's realistic, stick to your own pace, fall into whatever speed you naturally walk. Try not to be too tempted to keep up with people who are quicker than you if you don't need to. Now, realistically, this isn't always possible. I fully understand. This is kind of, if you do have the option, great. If not, if it's not always possible, in that situation, if you are a slower hiker and you're aware, hey, I'm a little bit slower, I'm kind of on, a little bit slow on the pace, I may be able to go all day, but I'm aware I'm a bit slower, and you aren't going with a group, and you're aware that, hey, I may not be able to just go my own speed all the time. It's a very, very good idea to, number one, take your training seriously so you do have plenty of reserves, because you are going to probably be burning more energy than you will expect, and make sure you're training really, really seriously. And also number two, in your training, make sure you are practicing a little bit of faster walking or hiking, because while your natural pace may be the most energy efficient, we can get the body more used to quicker paces if we're on the slower thing. So, for example, here, a typical workout I might get some of my hikers do what I call tempo walks. Really, really simple. Go around the neighborhood, put a timer on, do 1 minute walking at your normal natural pace, do 1 minute walking at a bit of a power mark, and then 1 minute slow, 1 minute fast, 1 minute slow, 1 minute fast. They do that for a few weeks. Try that on a trail, see how that goes. Whole different environment, a little bit tricky. Then maybe do that for a few weeks, then they sort of start doing, intentionally increasing their pace for their whole hike or whatever it may be. And just bit by bit, just exposing the body to those quicker speeds. So really when it comes down to it, if you have the option, stick to your pace for as much as you can. But if you're aware you're a bit of a slower hiker, that may not always be possible. So plan for the worst, get the body at least exposed to this type of thing so you're not caught out on the trail. Makes a massive, massive, massive difference. All right, next one and last one here. I've flown through this, so this is good. Recovery tips for hiking. So when it comes down to it, what you do at the end of the day. At the end of the day of hiking, particularly when we're looking at overnight or multi-day hikes, can make a big, big, big difference to your energy, both in your energy over the next couple of hours, so as you're kind of getting back into things at the end of the day, but more importantly for the next days afterwards. So essentially small changes in recovery. So small things you're doing to just boost the body's ability to recover from exercise can lead to more energy, less fatigue the next day. So you wake up feeling a little bit fresher, less aches and pains, so the legs aren't a bit sore, knee pain, whatever it may be, it's a little bit less. And then also, if we are talking about, say, slightly longer ones, where they're like 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, maybe up to 10 days, 14 days, whatever it may be, there's this typical thing where people call about finding their trail legs, whereas essentially where they notice, okay, about day 2, day 3, day 4, all of a sudden things start to feel a bit easier. The legs are a little used to hiking, you feel good, you start charging along, which is great. It happens to a lot of hikers. Essentially, the tricky thing there is if we do not have the reserves of fitness and we're not recovering enough day to day in day 1, day 2, day 3, what can sometimes happen is instead of us finding our trail legs where the body's adapted, gotten stronger, gotten fitter, and we're feeling good, it can kind of go the other way and we start to go, oh my gosh, it's getting harder, harder and harder. I'm waking up with less and less energy. And we don't really ever find those trail legs, but it goes the other direction, which is not much fun. So essentially recovery and what we're doing to actively help the body recover in between days, get stronger, adapt and all of that, very, 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 very valuable. Now, when it comes down to recovery, you probably, online, there's a million and one things about recovery. Recovery is a massive subject and a lot of people like to talk about all of these different things. So many things can work. But basically, I'm just going to run you through a few really simple and very, very cheap options, which will very much help. Number one, eat dinner no matter what. A lot of people will find is when they get to the end of the day, it's a little bit harder than they're expecting. They just have no appetite. And they're like, oh my gosh, I just barely want to eat. I can only have one spoonful or whatever it may be. End of the day, no matter what, make sure you eat dinner. Even if you have to sit over it for like 40 minutes and you just have a spoonful every 5 minutes or whatever it may be, get that food in. Because even if if you're not eating, you're not giving the body that fuel it needs to recover and to get whatever, you're going to wake up feeling a little bit worse. This is another situation where the snacks can be valuable because as much as typically we want to be having a proper meal at meals, so the snacks are like high carbohydrates, low fat, yada, yada, yada. At meals, we'll have a proper meal, get that protein, get the fat, we'll have something a little bit more wholesome. Sometimes, like ideally you'll eat that, but sometimes we just can't stomach it. So you can fall back on the snacks in that situation if you have enough of it as well. It's not ideal, but it's kind of a bit of a stopgap. But either way, force yourself to eat dinner, try your best. Number 2, rehydrate as quickly as you can after hiking. So basically, at the end of the day, most people, even if you have taken care with your hydration, you're probably going to be slightly dehydrated anyway. So just make sure you drink water afterwards. If you've got the opportunity, do that little urine test. Again, it's not super practical on the trail, but you might get lucky. But just rehydrate, after the day. If you feel thirsty, drink water. Simple rule of thumb. And then also spend a bit of time helping the body and mind cool down. Recovery as a whole is a massive, massive subject, but typically, rule of thumb, anything you can do just to help the body relax and the mind relax, it's all going to fall into being beneficial recovery in slightly different ways and everything's like there's a bit of intricacies in it, but really, really simple rule of thumb. If you can help the body and mind relax, that's going to be good. So some simple options here. Stretching. So stretching itself, a lot of people naturally fall into it. They've got achy legs at the end of the day. Spending 5 minutes of stretching, in camp, it can just go such a long way. It can just calm the body down, calm the mind. It can sort of reduce that sort of restless legs, achy legs, help us sleep a little bit better. It has all these little benefits, which can be great. So spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the end of the day, great. Self-massage with a water bottle or trekking pole. So a lot of people will come across like foam rollers in a gym or at home, where you do like self massage on muscles, where you kind of push into the muscles, release it a little bit, and yada yada. You can do the same thing on the trail with a water bottle. If you want to get on the ground, you can like roll around in a water bottle, or you can literally get your trekking pole and you can kind of get it, you can rub into your muscles, you can get the handle and do little like circles, and just find achy or sore muscles and just give it a little bit of love. It can be great. Journaling, that's not so much physical, but more for the mind. Like a lot of people get at the end of the day and they're like, oh my gosh, like my body is tired, but my mind is wired. Like I'm just worried about the next day, or I'm like, a bit uncomfortable, or I'm just thinking about a million things, whatever it may be. Journaling can be great. You can just clear the mind a little bit, calm the body down, put it in that recovery mode, and also can be really beneficial, which is helping you fall asleep a little bit more. Um, so just some simple things. And literally, that list is endless. Anything that will help the body and mind calm down, it'll all fall into this bracket. But just being a bit intentional on this can be really beneficial. And then after that, on top of that, like sleep is a massive, massive, massive thing for recovery. And a lot of us don't sleep well on the trail because obviously we're in tents or we're in sleeping bags or we're got restless legs or whatever it may be. So just doing what you can to look after your sleep is pretty valuable. So a few simple things here. Like, I don't personally like this, but I sleep like a log on the trail, so it doesn't really bother me. But a lot of people makes all the difference. Earplugs, eye mask, stops you having to listen to, the animals out there or whatever rustle around the sleeping bags, whatever it may be. Eye mask, just making sure, people with torches in the night aren't waking you up, whatever. Simple things, but don't weigh any much impact and make a big difference. If you're bringing your own sleeping bag or bringing your own sleeping mat or whatever it may be, test that type of stuff at home. Do it in the living room one night, just kind of get a little bit used to it. Can go a long way. And some people even like will use like some little sleep supplements. So they'll have like some magnesium or some melatonin and stuff you can just buy down the chemist. And that type of stuff can help the body relax, chill out, and just sleep a little bit deeper. But just sort of thinking on this thing, okay, what are maybe 2 or 3 actions that I can commit to every single day, which will just help me chill out. It can be anything, but it does go a long way. So basically, that's kind of the bits and pieces I want to cover today. In summary, really, really simple. Number one, build a reserve of fitness and strength for your training. Number two, snack regularly on the trail. High carbohydrate, low fat, low fiber, low protein. Ensure that you're hydrated. Regularly drink water. Add those electrolytes if you're hiking over 2 or 3 hours. Try to stick to your own pace, or at the very least, practice hiking at a quicker pace. And pay attention to recovery at the end of the day. None of that stuff is very much rocket science, but if you put that into action, it can make a dramatic, dramatic, dramatic difference to your energy, to your enjoyment, to your chance of success, and just absolutely turn around the hikes. Like I cannot stress enough how many of our hikers have just put these things in with a really, really simple into place, and they just come back to us and like, oh my gosh, that completely changed things around for me. Or I just feel so much better, whatever it may be. It sounds simple. A lot of this you would have heard before, but if you put it into place and do it regularly, consistently, it's game changing. I absolutely promise you. Obviously, there are a few nuances with this type of stuff, and some of you may be like, okay, cool, but I don't eat carbohydrates. And obviously, that may not be the best tip for you. Or maybe, I don't like electrolytes for one reason. That not maybe the best tip for you, what it may be. But if certain things don't apply for you, just want to quickly run through this. Hopefully, this does give you a bit of a solid overview on how to help and manage your hiking, your energy for your hiking adventures. Now, if you were interested in getting a little bit of help with the training and physical preparation side of things, as I said, that's what we do. That's what we specialize in. We offer personalized training programs for hikers to help them get them fit, strong, resilient for their adventures. Our packages typically include a custom personalized workout plan to get you ready for anything the trail's going to throw at you. We put a big emphasis into education to work on all the peripheral factors that can make or break an adventure, such as nutrition, recovery, self-care, mental strength, stuff like that. And also give you the coaching, support, and accountability to kind of keep you on track to whatever comes up. So it's not just a training plan, but it's a full package to cover everything you need to get ready for these types of trips. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about our training and about specifically our online personal training for hiking, you can go to summitstrength.com.au/online. On there's a big old video which kind of talks through kind of what we do, how it all runs and all of that. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more, you can book a call with that team and have a little bit of a chat. There's a great, great place to look. You can also check out our reviews and success stories on the website. We've got hundreds of reviews up there, which is awesome. And on top of that is if you were interested in getting access to that strength training for hikers mini course that I mentioned before and learning how to put together your own strength workouts for your hiking, you just email me at rowan at summitstrength.com.au. That's Rowan, Rowan, at summitstrength.com.au. Just say, hey, I'd love to get my hands on the course and I can set you up. That's completely free. There's no issues there at all. So if you're interested in learning what we do, check out the website. If you just want a free course, let me know and I'll get you set up on that. So look at that for time. Okay, cool. So I'm going to bang through a few of these questions before I've got to duck off because just as last time, I heard the missus coming through the door. So I'll bang through these as quickly as we can. So basically, first one was from Sheena. So do this electrolyte replacement have caffeine? Is caffeine's not good for altitude hiking? So when it comes down to it, a lot of these the majority of the electrolyte supplements don't have caffeine in them. However, some of them do. So just look at the package, and some people buy them specifically because they have caffeine in there. So just look at the package. 75%, 85% of them don't, but just look in there. In regards to caffeine and altitude hiking, if you're a regular caffeine drinker, caffeine is absolutely fine at altitude. There was this old sort of thing saying, hey, you know what, it'll get you dehydrated, it's not so good. But studies have shown it's actually, absolutely fine at altitude if you're already a caffeine drinker. So don't have to worry about that too much. Coming down, Mary, my travel club recommends electrolytes for their first aid kit. Yeah, a lot of people will kind of have and use them as a backup as opposed to using them routinely. It's the kind of sort of thing like, yes, it's great for first aid because, if someone's dehydrated, it's a good option or it may be. But if we take it prior to that, it's going to be beneficial for preventing anyone getting to that stage. And it's sort of that stage of, okay, reducing the likelihood of bad things going wrong, but also increasing the likelihood of good things going wrong. It's not 100% necessary, but it's definitely beneficial, and it can make a big difference. Coming down, Jude, if you say 8 hour, 30 kilometer hike coming up, is it better to try and keep up? Better for you to try and just keep walking at a slower pace versus trying to push it, have more frequent rest stops. Yeah, typically when it comes down to this type of thing, usually, it's probably better to kind of keep the slower pace because of that walking efficiency we kind of talked before. Obviously, in regards to practicalities, there will be points where you want to sit down and have a bit of a rest or have a sit down and have a bit of a meal or whatever it may be. So there may be periods we have to push a little bit more. But general rule of thumb, the more you can stick that lower pace and the less you can push yourself to that sort of quicker pace, the better. So general rule of thumb, when I have my sort of what I call them challenge hikers that I train who are doing things like 50 kilometers or 30 kilometers or 100 kilometers, that's the recommendations that I kind of do is stick to your pace as much as you can, unless obviously there's a cutoff and then you have to, bump things up a little bit. Next question from Marilyn. I'm going to the Portuguese Camino Trek. Is the water safe to drink? I'm not 100% sure. 99% sure it's fine. There we go. Got Stevie the two thumbs up. Yeah, there you go. Should be fine. No worries. Simone, I find meditation before bed really helps to smooth my sleep on the trail. Yeah, absolutely. And meditation, deep breathing, yoga, literally, as I said, anything that'll chill you out, relax you. It's obviously going to be amazing because you're relaxed and you're in the middle of nowhere and taking it all in. But that's all going to be beneficial for sleep as well. And so, Joanne, I've heard a small amount of Celtic salt is very beneficial to assist with hydration in a bottle every morning. So yeah, basically when it comes down to salt, like electrolytes has a bunch of different things in it, like sodium, potassium. Oh, I should know this. I'm blanking, it's in on Monday. But anyway, it has a bunch of different things in it. Celtic salt is just sodium, basically. So it can be, sodium is beneficial for retaining hydration, holding onto water, making us a little bit more thirsty. So we actually want to drink more water. So it falls into the same category. If you're going on a hike, it's probably worthwhile having that spread of electrolytes as opposed to just the Celtic salt. But that's kind of where it's sort of fitting in there. So definitely can be beneficial for hydration for a few different reasons. Awesome, Sheena, that you're happy about having a coffee on the ABC check. Yes. So anyone else wondering, high altitude, as long as you're a coffee drinker or already have caffeine, you're absolutely fine to have caffeine. It's not a problem at all. And then yeah, electrolytes help me master the taste of aquatabs. Yes, that's absolutely a big one as well because the aquatabs sometimes suck and they're not nasty. and they can definitely mask that taste. The other thing I didn't mention as well can often help with what we call taste fatigue. With a lot of people, they just get sick of drinking water over the day. So just having a little bit of sweetness, if you find a flavor you like, can just break that up as well. Um, but there we go. Okay, so I know I just banged through very, very, very quickly, and I know I was talking very quickly, but hopefully that all made sense. Hopefully, people got some good information from that. So yeah, coming off the back of this, as I said, if anyone wants to get their hands on that mini course or does have any random questions from today's presentation, just reach out to me at rowan@summitstrength.com.au, and I'll do anything I can to help.
Thanks, Rowan. That's awesome. That was so good. I always learn so much. I just can't believe how much I thought I knew. And then you come on and every time I learn something brilliant. So love it. Thank you. All right, ladies, so you know where to reach him. If you do have any questions, you can also reach out to me. And if for some reason I can't answer it, you can definitely, yeah, just Rowan or I, either one is fine. If you want to see the other two webinars that Rowan's done with us, they are on the Camino Women website. At the top, you will see next to the Contact Us button is the webinars button, and you can get the drop down there, and they'll all be there from now on. So yeah, so that's it for tonight. We should let Rowan probably go and hang out with his beautiful wife and have the night. Thank you all for jumping in here. There was like 40, there was I think 48, almost 50 at the top of the hour. So that's awesome. Great to have you all. Thank you, Rowan.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having me on again. I really, really, really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. So hope everyone has a lovely night, and we'll yeah, chat to you again next month.
All right.
All right.
See you soon.
Take it easy, guys.